All right, so get this. We're diving into Chinua Achebe's The Dead King.
This is going to be good.
It's powerful stuff.
Good.
And this isn't just any story about a, dead king.
No, not at all.
This king had so much power, but get this, even in death, he needed permission to be buried with his own stool.
It's like what you said. It's those everyday objects that really get to the heart of Achebe's genius.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We've got 2 different podcast discussions, actually, to unpack all of this.
Oh, good. Because I was listening to one this morning, and it really got me thinking about how relevant this all still is.
Absolutely. So for anyone who maybe hasn't had a chance to read the story, The Dead King introduces us to Obunde. He's a young boy who practically worships his grandfather, the king.
And you can tell Achebe uses that innocence so effectively.
Right.
It's like we're seeing everything through Obunde's eyes, and at first it seems like a straightforward story about a great leader.
Yeah, you get lulled into that kind of hero worship.
Exactly. But then, boom, Obunde learns his grandfather needed to ask the colonial district officer for permission just to be buried with his royal stool.
Can you imagine? It's like this huge reality check.
It's almost like that one detail changes everything. Like we're forced to question everything we thought we knew.
It's true. And I was reading about how in many African cultures, stools were like sacred objects.
Oh, absolutely. They weren't just furniture. They represented a direct link to a ruler's authority, their ancestors, their whole lineage.
Wow. So it's like the stool becomes this symbol for the entire culture's identity.
Exactly. So when the king has to ask permission to be buried with it, it's not just about a physical object, it's about something much deeper.
It's like colonialism is trying to control even death itself.
You got it. It's about undermining traditional power structures right there at the core.
Wow. It's heavy stuff.
It is. It's powerful. And it makes you think about the lasting impact of these power dynamics, don't you think?
And it's not just about the king himself, right? Achebe brings in Obunde's father, and we see this struggle play out on a whole other level.
Oh, yeah. Because the father is stuck right in the middle of all this.
Totally. In fact, he's the one who tells Obunde about the whole stool situation.
Right. It's not like some big secret or anything.
No, and you can tell he's carrying the weight of it.
Absolutely. It's like he understands the impossible position his father was in. One of the podcasts mentioned that he was an interpreter for the district officer.
Wow.
Can you imagine trying to bridge that cultural divide?
Talk about pressure. I mean, to be caught between your own heritage and this
imposing force.
Yeah, and to see it happening right in front of you.
And that's where you get that generational divide.
Because Obunde is like, come on, how could you?
Exactly. He sees it as a betrayal of their whole legacy, but his father understands the reality of it.
Right, he's seen what colonial power can do.
And it makes you think about the choices people were forced to make.
No easy answers, right?
Yeah.
Just impossible situations.
Exactly. And Achebe doesn't let the father off the hook either. You can tell he's still wrestling with it all.
Yeah, like trying to make sense of his father's actions.
It adds this whole other layer to the story.
It's powerful stuff. Makes you wonder what you would do in that situation.
It really does. It's about those impossible choices and how they stay with you.
And then there's Obunde,
Right.
right in the thick of it all, watching his father struggle, trying to make sense of his grandfather. And in the end, he makes a choice.
He does. He makes a really powerful choice.
He rejects the kingship.
Which, yeah, at first glance you might think, oh, he's giving up.
Right.
But it's so much more than that.
It's like he's saying, you can't control me.
Exactly. It's an act of defiance. He's refusing to be a part of this system that's been corrupted by colonial power.
It's like he'd rather walk away than be a puppet king.
Right. And one of the podcasts pointed out that it's not about clinging to the past. It's about choosing to lead on your own terms, even if that means walking away from what you thought was your birthright.
Which brings us to that ending. Because it's open-ended.
Right.
We don't know what happens to Obunde or his people.
We don't. And that's what's so brilliant about it. Achebe leaves us with this question: what comes next? It's like he's challenging us to think about the legacy of colonialism and how it continues to shape the world today.
And it's not just about colonialism. It's about all those power dynamics we've been talking about, the way they play out in our own lives, the choices we make, the stories we tell.
Absolutely. And sometimes the most powerful thing you could do is say, no, I won't be controlled. I'm going to forge my own path.
Just like Obunde.
Exactly. So as you go about your day, think about the legacy of colonialism in your own life. Think about those power dynamics. Think about the choices you make. And remember that you always have the power to say no, to choose a different path, to create a different story. And on that note, we'll wrap up this deep dive. Thanks for joining us as we explore these complex themes in The Dead King. It's a story that stays with you long after you finish reading it, and we hope our discussion today has given you a lot to think about.
Absolutely. It's a story that makes you question everything, and those are the stories that really matter. Thanks for listening.